They tried to destroy me, but I showed that a father will never stop fighting for his son. I never imagined my life could turn upside down so quickly. At 33, I was in a stable place, or at least I thought I was. I had a good job, friends, and a peaceful life without any major ups or downs. But everything began to change one ordinary night, when my niece Vanessa, after a family dispute, used an invisible weapon to attack me. This would be just the beginning of a battle I never imagined I would. A face. For those who don't know me, I'm Nicholas, a single father to Adriano, my autistic son. I've always been proud to be Adriano's caregiver. The routine of daily care, therapies, and sleepless nights were all part of who I was. I never imagined I would be challenged so brutally, not only by society, but by my own family. Adriano was always the reason I woke up every day. His smile, his laughter, the way he looked at me made me feel like the world was more than just my daily problems. He taught me patience, and in a way, he was my best friend since birth. It wasn't easy, of course. There were challenges, and I knew that, as the father of an autistic son, it would take much more than usual to ensure he had a happy life. Up until that point, my life was a mix of work, family, and the mission of ensuring Adriano had all the tools to express himself and grow. That night, at a family event, everything changed. Vanessa, my niece, was fighting with me over a disagreement about how we were handling Adriano's issues, which she felt were going too far. Little did she know that while we were arguing, she was setting the stage for a devastating personal attack. She managed to record a compromising video that completely distorted how I was handling Adriano's medications. That image transformed me into something I wasn't. It made me the target of a group more interested in destroying me than in understanding the reality I was living in. The video was quickly shared, and from that moment on, my life would never be the same. The impact was immediate. The next day, I was called to a meeting with Child Protective Services, CPS. They accused me of child abuse and misadministering Adriano's medication. I was completely paralyzed, unable to understand what was happening. How could anyone believe something so absurd? I knew I was being manipulated, but Vanessa's words and the fact that she was one of my closest relatives made the attack even more painful. Worst of all, on some level, I knew that for many people, a video is worth more than any explanation. The emotional pain I felt in that moment was indescribable. Not only was I being unfairly attacked, but at the same time I saw myself as a terrible father. Was I doing everything wrong? The video had distorted so many things, making me out to be someone I wasn't. Even though I was certain I was on the right path, the pressure of the accusations made me question my own abilities. I, who had always been strong, enough to handle everything alone, began to wonder if I was truly prepared to protect Adriano in a moment like that. The psychological attack was immense. I knew Vanessa's lie wouldn't be easily disproved, especially since I had no concrete evidence to prove my innocence. My mother, who had always been my greatest ally, was torn. She wanted to believe me, but the veiled threats from Vanessa and her family made her feel insecure too. It was such a surreal situation that it felt like everything I'd built was being destroyed by a video and empty words. I felt completely helpless, as if I were tilting at windmills. And as if that weren't enough, Vanessa used social media to further attack my image, spreading the video and bringing the discussion to a wider audience. This created unbearable pressure. With each comment, I felt further away from who I was, further away from Adriano, and further away from my own truth. It was at that moment that I realized I couldn't continue fighting alone. I needed help. But at the same time, I felt ashamed to ask for it. The hardest part was seeing the distrustful looks from people who had always considered my family a pillar of support. I didn't want to be seen as a victim, but over time, it became impossible not to feel like I was being treated like a criminal. The shame of seeing my own mother hesitant to support me, of seeing Adriano being looked at with judgment by others ate away at me. I began to question whether I truly had the strength to fight against this tide of lies. As the investigation progressed, the weight of the situation only grew. The CPS team was professional, but there were times when I felt like they were just following protocol without considering the nuances of my life with Adriano. I was starting to lose control of everything. There was a part of me that wanted to simply give up, run away from it all, and let fate decide what would happen. What tormented me most was the thought of losing Adriano. How could a father be at peace knowing that his son could be taken away from him for something he didn't do? But then, something inside me awakened. It was as if the fight was greater than any feelings of despair or fear. I couldn't let Vanessa win. Not like this. I needed to fight for the truth, not only to clear my name, but to ensure that Adriano was recognized for who he truly is. A unique child with special needs, yes, but with a heart full of love and potential. The pain of being misunderstood was killing me, but the pain of seeing my son suffer because of it was unbearable. I knew I couldn't fail him. Just when I thought there was no way to turn things around, Eliza, my lawyer, stepped in. She took on the case with the energy of someone who refused to accept defeat. She not only gave me clear direction on how to proceed, but also brought me a new perspective, that I was not alone in this battle. Furthermore, Thomas, a longtime friend, offered me unconditional support, reminding me of the importance of being surrounded by people who truly understood me. With this new support network, I felt I could rebuild my confidence. But the road wasn't easy. Between medical exams, hearings, and attempts to deny Vanessa's accusations, I felt like every day was an emotional battle. Even when things seemed a little calmer, I couldn't shake the fear that my family wouldn't support me in the end. I worried that all this effort would be in vain, that the weight of Vanessa's words would be stronger than the truth I was desperately trying to prove. However, the turning point came during a family meeting, a tense encounter where all the cards were on the table. I was clear, direct, and exposed the whole truth. It wasn't about defending myself, but about showing Adriano who he really was. During the meeting, the silence was profound. The tension was palpable. But as I looked at the faces of my mother and other family members, something changed. They began to understand that I was being sincere and that the story Vanessa had spread was based on lies. The hardest part of the meeting was confronting my sister and niece, but even so, something inside me told me to remain calm and composed. It wasn't just about justifying my actions, but about showing them the importance of giving space for the truth to be heard. It wasn't an instant victory, but the beginning of healing. Eliza and Thomas's support was essential, but more importantly, it was the internal transformation I experienced throughout this process. Fear and insecurity gave way to an inner strength I didn't know I had. Facing the accusations and looking my family in the eye, without flinching, made me realize I was stronger than I imagined. It wasn't just about proving my innocence, but about reconnecting with the person I've always been, protecting my son, and showing that a father's love is unbreakable. After the meeting, things began to change, but not easily. The truth came out, but people's perceptions didn't change overnight. Some parts of the family still hesitated, and the weight of the accusations continued to loom over me. Vanessa, despite having been unmasked, tried to manipulate the narrative to her advantage, making me feel constantly threatened. But instead of giving in to fear, I found new strength within myself. I knew I needed to be patient, that recovery would be a long process, but that in the end, it would be worth it. Eliza and Thomas's support was crucial, but the person who gave me the most strength to keep going was Adriano. Seeing how much he trusted me, how willing he was to help me, made me realize that my struggle wasn't just mine. He didn't understand everything that was happening, but his smile gave me daily motivation. I couldn't fail him. I couldn't let him be harmed by mistakes we didn't make. Adriano, even with his limitations, always made me believe that love is stronger than any lie. With each step, the process of unmasking Vanessa became more arduous. The pressure mounted and the investigation continued. As social workers and doctors began reviewing information about Adriano, I could see a clearer picture emerging. They weren't there to condemn me, but to understand the context and ensure Adriano was being well cared for. Even so, the pain of knowing I had been the target of such serious accusations without any basis still tormented me. It wasn't easy to accept that, even with all the evidence on my side, the weight of a misperception of a manipulated video still had such an impact. For a time, I almost gave in. That unbearable pressure, the indirect threats, the isolation, it all began to consume me. There were times when I thought I couldn't take it anymore. I found myself facing the abyss, my hands trembling and my heart racing. But then I remembered Adriano. I couldn't stop now, couldn't allow anger and fear to overwhelm me. It was at that moment that I made a promise to myself, that I would never again let anyone doubt the love I had for my son, and that I would do whatever it took to ensure the best for him. With this new focus, I began gathering evidence. Eliza helped me organize documents, conversations, medical records, everything possible to refute the accusations. Every little detail was important in reconstructing our truth. At the same time, my mother, despite being emotionally devastated, began to support me more actively. She was one of the first to realize that my relationship with Adriano was never one of neglect, but rather of absolute care. This gave me an essential emotional foundation, and little by little, the pieces began to fall into place. I was no longer alone. Thomas, my longtime friend, was another pillar. He was tireless, calling friends who could testify on our behalf and doing everything he could to help me stay calm. His presence reminded me of who I truly was, a man of integrity, not there to destroy anyone, but to protect what he loved most. With their support and that of some family members who began to believe me, Vanessa's lies were gradually unmasked. And then, on a crucial day of hearings, the truth finally prevailed. Vanessa's lawyer, who had previously seemed so confident in her accusations, could no longer sustain the lies. The case was finally dismissed, and the false allegations against me were completely dismissed. The feeling of relief was almost indescribable. After months of struggle, I was finally free of that shadow of distrust. But the victory wasn't mine alone. Adriano, who had been at the center of it all, also emerged victorious. He could now live his life without the weight of the lies hanging over him. The feeling of justice being served was wonderful, but the most profound impact of this journey wasn't the legal victory, but the internal transformation I experienced. What once seemed impossible to me now proved that we can overcome even the greatest challenges when we focus on what truly matters. The fatherly love I felt for Adriano, the desire to protect him, gave me the strength to face adversity. I learned that no matter how difficult situations may seem, there is always a way forward, as long as you have determination and the support of the right people by your side. In the end, my life wasn't perfect. I still face daily challenges, especially when it comes to ensuring Adriano receives the best possible care. But now I have a clearer vision of what truly matters: true connection with those we love, perseverance, and the importance of being honest with ourselves. I've learned to value myself more, to trust my choices, and to not let difficulties get me down. I could have given up many times during this process. Every attack I received, every threatening message, every judgmental look made me question whether I was on the right path. But when I looked at Adriano and realized how much he depended on me, I realized that giving up was not an option. Overcoming adversity isn't about never failing, but about getting up after every fall and moving forward. That's what I learned on this journey. Now I see how much this experience shaped me. My self-confidence, which had previously been so shaken, was restored. The people who surrounded me during this difficult time became more than friends or family. They became my allies. Each of them helped me not lose faith, not lose courage. And with that, I became a stronger person, more determined to live with integrity, regardless of obstacles. The story of overcoming obstacles I experienced wasn't easy. On the contrary, it was painful and filled with moments when I considered giving up. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that difficulties can teach us valuable lessons about who we truly are. What seemed like a losing battle turned out to be a great opportunity for growth. I not only won a case, but I also overcame my own emotional limitations, fears, and insecurities. Today, looking back, I see that the true transformation happened not in the courtroom, but within me. I'm no longer the same man who entered this trial. I'm someone who now understands the value of perseverance and truth. The support of those who love me and the inner strength I've developed have shown me that it's possible to overcome any adversity, even when everything seems to be against you. And most importantly, I know that in the end, my greatest victory wasn't proving my innocence or exposing Vanessa's lie. The greatest victory was ensuring Adriano had the life he deserves, without more pain, without more discomfort, without more judgment. Today he is happier, safer, and more cared for than ever. And as a father, I feel I can finally breathe easy, knowing I did the right thing. So if you're reading this and find yourself in a difficult time, remember, you're not alone. It may seem like the world is against you, but there's always a way to fight, to get back on your feet. The journey won't be easy, but as I've learned, every step counts. You are stronger than you think, and in the end, the truth always prevails. Don't give up. Love and perseverance can move mountains.